Hello, I'm State Senator John Kavanagh with another edition of Kavanagh's Korner. And this edition is about the state budget, or lack of a state budget. But before I get into explaining what happened and how we are about a week away from the end of the fiscal year without a budget, let me first assure you that if we do not have a signed state budget by July 1st, the end of the fiscal year, state government will not be shutting down. You'll read about that in the newspapers. It's a scare tactic and something which sells newspapers. Not that anybody buys newspapers anymore, but it wouldn't happen. The state budget is like a big glacier with so much momentum behind it that even without a signed budget on July 1st, the state would continue rolling along until perhaps sometime in mid-August. So there is no problem with funding. Therefore, do not go speeding down Route 10 on July 1st because there will be state troopers out there and they will give you a ticket. So let's talk about how we got to where we're at. Now, I'm in my 19th year in the legislature. I've always been on the Appropriations Committee. More often than not, the chair or the vice chair of either the House or the Senate Appropriations Committee. So I have been, for almost all of my legislative career, one of the chief negotiators of the state budget. And we always did the same thing. The House Republicans and the Senate Republicans, because we're the majority party, we would get together and negotiate, with input from our respective members, our legislative budget. Then united, we would approach the governor, be it a Democrat governor or a Republican governor, and we would negotiate with the governor to get the best deal that aligns with legislative Republican priorities. This year, for some reason, it was different. We started out the same, although we started out late this year. For reasons that don't make much sense to me, the governor did not want to begin negotiating the budget in January like we usually do. She wanted to hold off until we passed Proposition 123, a ballot referral to the voters, which increases the state land trust revenue to schools, which is fine. Everybody supports that. That's what the money is there for in the first place. But that didn't happen, still hasn't happened, and the governor decided to only begin negotiations a few weeks ago. Now, as always, the Senate Republicans met with the House Republicans, and we pretty much agreed after a little wrangling on the excess revenue beyond the baseline. The baseline budget are the reoccurring, non-controversial expenses the state has every year. Employee salaries, road construction, road maintenance, the health care, things that go forward naturally, that have to be done to keep state government running. We get the revenue projection, and if it's above the baseline need, we then have to decide how to spend the extra money. Could be tax cuts, could be more road construction, employee pay raise increases, put something in the rainy day fund, many, many things you can spend it on. So we finally came to an agreement with the House Republicans on how much the excess was, and it was about $270 million. And we proposed to evenly divide it between the House Republicans, the Senate Republicans, and the governor, our Democrat governor, who would divvy it up among the Democrat lawmakers and herself. Well, with some hesitation, the House kind of went along with that. But at the next meeting, they came in with their proposed budget, and not only did it spend their money, but it spent almost all of our money and the governor's money. And it's like, well, what have you done here? Why'd you spend our money? And they said, well, we knew what you wanted. Well, it doesn't really work that way. And they were very insistent that they didn't want to let us take care of our 90 and them their 90 and the governor her 90. So we were at a stalemate. We then found out that one of their propes people was talking with the governor about revenue estimates. So we figured we'd better start negotiating with the governor. But we told them we were doing that and that we wanted them to come back on board. We eventually negotiated a budget with the governor that she agreed with. But we left the House $90 million open so they could, when the budget went over to them, fill it in with their member asks. And that's what we passed out. Now, it wasn't a great Republican budget like I'm used to passing out because we are in divided government. The governor can veto any budget that we send up, and without a two-thirds vote of both chambers, which we do not have, there is no budget. We can't do anything about it. In addition, even if we sent up our ideal Republican budget to her, she could line item veto out all of the Republican asks and just have her budget there. So that's the problem. We have to have a budget that there's mutual agreement between the governor, a Democrat, and a legislature dominated by Republicans. And we were able to craft that. Again, a compromise budget. Neither side put in anything that would really upset the other side. So we don't have, roving police locking up illegal aliens in Phoenix, which I would love to have. And the governor doesn't have drive-through abortion clinics. Nothing toxic to either side. Pretty reasonable budget. We passed it out. We sent it to the House. Now, before we sent it to the House, they realized that they could not, let me take that back one step further. The House created a budget which was totally toxic to the governor. It had all sorts of provisions that she would never sign, and she said she would veto that. So that budget was going nowhere. We sent over our budget to the House, and they didn't want to put it up to their membership. So now instead, they're claiming that they want to do a so-called skinny budget, which is just the baseline spending. The problem with that is that the governor has already said she will veto that. And the reason why is the governor knows that if Republicans passed a skinny budget with no new spending, just what we had to do, we would never come back and pass an additional budget with more money. We would scream, we have a fiscally conservative victory and just go home. She knows that. She's going to keep us here. We believe that the Senate budget, which we sent to the House, has enough votes of Republicans and Democrats to pass. In fact, the chair of the House Appropriations Committee thinks that there's 40 out of 60 votes for that budget. But for some reason, they're not putting the budget up. They're pushing the skinny budget. Prediction, what's going to happen? They may get the skinny budget out with just Republican votes. And if it comes here, we may very well vote for it, send it up to the governor so she can veto it. And then we can say, hey, we told you so. Now have a vote on our budget, the bipartisan budget, which has support of Republicans and Democrats in both chambers. Hopefully, in the end, that's what will happen. But legislature's kind of strange, but fear not, the glacier will continue to roll until mid-August, and I'm sure we'll have a resolution by then. So that's it for this edition of Kavanagh's Corner.